Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new video, new brew. It's a Grixis deck, and you see most of the decks you see in a typical Grixis deck. This is basically the Grixis Shadow, but with some slight changes. I'm playing, there's no Shadow in the deck, of course. I'm playing four new guys, the third pet Iconoclast. And this guy is just very good in this shell. It's basically young pyromancer that gets artifact 1/1 tokens out of the Mishra's Bubble for 0 mana and all your 1 and 2 mana spells, but also with some artifacts on sideboard like Alpine Moon, Nihil Spellbomb, Hers, Explosives, also Alpine Moons, and it just fits this archetype very well, and you can play it turn 2. You don't have to worry about your life total. You don't have to wait until you drop below 13, and mana base is much smoother. You are able to play the island, the mountain, and the swamp. Uh, Much easier to play around the Blood Moon with all three basics. So we are playing all the stuff, as I said, you typically see in the Grixis Shadow, but there were definitely some choices to make, and you have to decide the number of the card you will play because it's very crowded to fit them all into the main. So I decided to play no bolts. So Fatal Push and Unholy Heat are both just so good in the current meta game that there's no point in playing not playing these cards. Uh, and the Bolt is just Bolt is great. I mean, I love Bolt, but I uh, I uh, I think I will mostly in the 99% of the cases use my burn spell to kill a creature in the current metagame. So I really prefer the heat and push in the main instead of the bolt currently. Okay, I think the Inquisition of the Kozilek is currently almost unplayable card in modern. It's don't You don't remove with it almost any card you care about with this deck, and there's absolutely no point, in my opinion, playing that card in the main. So the Inquisitions are definitely out. Okay, so we're playing only one spell pierce. This is the only card I would love to add one more to the main, but all the other pieces are also very important. Three considers, so you could play two, but I just love consider is also very important. It plays very well with Shredder, also with third party Iconoclast, and uh, uh, I just prefer first Pierce over the fourth Consider, but also prefer third Consider over second Pierce. So I opted to play three and one split of those. Other than that, typical stuff: Ragomans, Channelers, Ledger Shredders, of course, Drowning Loch, one of the biggest uh, reasons to go Grixis with this deck. Uh, Expressive iteration, and one of Croxa, which is just very good with your channelers and Ledger Shredder to discard it, then play it. Don't You don't have to waste time by playing it from your hand, but in most cases you will play it from your graveyard immediately for 4 mana, and it's great in all the mid-range matchups. So that's the whole deck. I opted for 18 lands. I think this is the best number of lands to play in your Grixis in this kind of deck where you play four Dragon Ray Channelers, four Ledger Shredders, some number of Considers, because definitely I prefer third Consider instead of a 19th land. It's just very easy to dig yourself and find it. Um, I also prefer with all these cards in the Murktide deck to also play 18 lands and not play the pain land. Okay, so I think this build is very near to perfect for this colors currently, and the deck just performs very well. I could see trimming one turn part Iconoclast for the second spell pierce, but just wanted to play four of them for my first league with this card and first time testing it. So I always like to play four of the cards, but I could definitely see trimming maybe one for the second Pierce. I think Pierce is just very good currently, and but we have faster storms on the sideboard. Uh, and the deck is already very good against creativity, which is um, played a lot. At the moment, we also have the explosives for the creativity, Flusterstorms, Alpine Moon, which negates their ability to make tokens with their land. And that's it. So on the sideboard, some Graveyard Hate, some explosives, Flusterstorms, also good in Cascade matchups, Turax, which are very good against control decks, and the four-color Omnat decks, they play mostly Binding or Prismatic Ending or Solitude. So all those cards just don't kill Turok, and if they don't have Bolt or something similar, they're definitely having problems with this one. Some land hate, Colgan's Command, of course, as the artifact hate, and the two terminates to kill those Primeval Titans, Murktides, Archons, whatever. Just Great removal. Okay, so that's it. Uh, I just finished a league, 5-0 league with this deck, and we'll go through those matches. Deck feels incredibly incredible. Just it feels so strong. Um, I didn't feel this strong. I rarely feel this strong with any deck, and I think it really has a large potential to be just very good. Okay, so I decided to discard the Shredder. First, this is my opponent's hand. Ragavan is gone. We'll just do this. The heat is gone. They're left with the bolt, counterspells, pierces, and at this point I didn't want to play my Shredder into bolt, so I just put the Gigante into hand. Trying looking for them to tap out or draw another land to protect my Shredder, which I did. They didn't go for Bolt, which was a smart thing to do here because I would just be able to get counter on the Shredder. My opponent goes Bolt on their turn. I decide to go John in Loch anyway, but they decide to let the Shredder live. That was fine. By that, they decided it's better for them to hold this counter spell. Uh, uh, for some bigger threat, probably. My opponent just draws into multiple Ragawams, which I'm able to kill with my draws. And I drew into Expressive Iteration, which is obviously very good, but I don't want to play it definitely into counterspell. So I first play Giganta. I want them to use their counterspell. I wait for them to tap out, but they play Iteration just in into another land, and I finally got my opportunity. I top decked Totsis, so the waiting definitely paid off, and I was able to pump my Shredder, play play the iteration, resolve the Croxa, which is definitely a problem for the Murktide deck in this situation. So I just attacked with the Shredder, had another Shredder in hand, and the Murktide, and sorry, Croxa from the graveyard. Just I'm able to recast it multiple times because I have a lot of cards in the graveyard. But next turn I'm able to Shredder Croxa again, and I have ability to attack. Also, I decided I found the Totsis, so I just decided to play the Totsis instead of the Shredder. So they can't counter my Croxa, and I play my Croxa, and my opponent concedes. That was game one. Against Murktide opponent, I think I had two Murktide opponents in this league, and two Amulet Titan opponents. So there's a lot of Murktide currently in the league, which is what I expected to happen. And I think this deck is in the advantage to this current. I was very lucky here. You can see I went considering response and find my only peers to be able to get rid of this blood moon, and I was able to get out of this situation, and I was also able to just play kill the shredder, hold John Locks, and my opponent had counterspell for this one, and but I untapped with Iconoclast, which just makes their Ragavan very bad, and I decided to take the Blood Moon anyway because I had the Soldier blocker for Ragavan and another removal in hand, so I just get back my Giganta. I decide to immediately play it and then go Shredder, John, and Lock next turn. I again had a nice draws. Pumped my Shredder, played the Iconoclast, which means next turn I'm able to start getting some tokens with the John and Lock in hand, and that was it. My opponent concedes. That was match one against a Murktide opponent. These games with this deck, in my experience, are very fun, and the deck is just a blast to play. So in this position, when you have the Dragon Ray Channelers and the Totsis, and you kind of have to go second land on Steam Vents, you have to be careful. You have to be careful how you sequence your spells. In this situation, I played Totsis turn 1 to be able to go Dragon Ray Channeler Totsis turn 2, so because I won't be able to have two black sources on turn 2, and I went for the Totsis turn 1, discard their Inquisition, but they top decked into another Totsis, so I wasn't able to get rid of the Tarmogoyf from their hand, and they went for I got the Vren from the top of their deck. They also had Vren. Unfortunately, they got the Dragon Ray Channeler from top of my deck, which was really good. Uh, but I was able to find my Channeler. I just played both of my creatures. I hoped they'll go um, try to do something end of turn so I can use my Pierce, and they did exactly that. They went to kill my Channeler, and I was able to save it with the Pierce. I decided to fetch before, so I'm able to see the top of my deck, and I wanted to shuffle before that. So I just leave the heat on the top, and to kill this channeler or their attacking Ragavan, and my opponent decides to go for the Ren, to get rid of the Ren instead of the Ragavan. I kill their channeler and then play the seasoned pyromancer. So my my Ragavan was definitely the target. They should have targeted. They should have targeted the Ragavan and not the Vren in that position. But Vren will also be close to ulti, so he will be dangerous too. But Ragavan just instantly won me the game. After that, my opponent wasn't able to know that, of course. Uh, game two, in match two, I decided to you immediately use my Dragon Ray Channeler on the field to play Mishra's Bubble. So in case they kill it immediately, I already had good use of it. I removed the land from top of my deck, and I'm a bit when they kill my channeler, I'm very close to finding the delirium, and my opponent discards the heat before I get delirium, so I can kill the brand, and they also discard my only threat in hand at this point. So I wasn't in a great situation, but I had at least a drown to get rid of this pyro. I decided to let the Ragavan and just play a Colagans on my turn. I killed their Ragavan, I returned my Ragavan, and I decided to go for the dash immediately. You can really sometimes get something very good from the top of their library, like .cs, stuff like that. Uh, but unfortunately, my opponent goes Colligan's command, then returns their Ragavan. Also, I'm forced to go a heat on Ren to put it on a 1 counter. So, no, not ideal plays, definitely. I just was forced into those bad plays, and my opponent stabilized on 5 life. And they also found the Mishra's Bubble from the top of my deck, and I was just in a bad situation. I did find the iteration and played my Giganta first, so they can't attack me with Dragoman or the Pyro. But they just were able to draw a lot of cards here, and you will now see the reason why I lost this deck at this turn. I was able to play the iteration, also draw into Shredder, so pretty good draws, but Giganta is currently bugged, so you can't use the Giganta mana to cast spells currently on Modo, so I wasn't able to kill the Tarmogoyf, which immediately led to my defeat. I would most probably lose this game anyway, but and that just instantly lost me this game. So Gigant is currently bugged. It's definitely a problem for a lot of players. A lot of decks currently using the Giganta. I think it's probably the most used companion right now. So really unfortunate. I decided to hold my bubbles for the turn. I definitely want to play one with the shredder and maybe discard another. So that's why I kept the second one in hand. My opponent has the bolt, but I'm able to loot land away, and that's already a good trade. So they immediately go for Dragon Dash turn 2, find the bubble from the top of my card, so immediately got the card in the hand, and I use my iteration to immediately play the channeler as a blocker for their Ragavan, so they have to kill it before, and I boarded in the two Turks. It's a mid-range matchup, and the Turk is always good when you're playing first in these mid-range matchups. And didn't have. I found removal next turn to kill the Ragavan immediately and kill their planeswalkers. Also make their Liliana useless with my soldier tokens from third-party Iconoclast. Its third Iconoclast is not good against Ren, but if you can get rid of Ren with your Totsis, whatever, um, then it can be pretty good. You can see the power of Iconoclast here because it produces the mana, the tokens, sorry, from non-instant sorcery lands like I'm able to make to start lowering the Goif. Unfortunately, I removed the two cards from their graveyard last turn and then top decked into Johnnylock. I immediately made Goif 4-5, so I know they can't have anything in their deck except the instant, so they can grow Goifs, they can just trade with Turak, which was fine, and they concede the next turn, and that was it. Game 3 in match 2 against the Giant. Okay, so match 3, not being able to use not being able to use the Giganta there definitely costed me the game, but I would probably use that game anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. Again, I start with Tatsis against my Amulet Titan opponent, discarded one Dryad, but of course they have the second one. I just go with Iconoclast on turn 2. It's just a very good threat in this deck to play on turn 2. And then turn 3 you can start doing some really powerful stuff with it, making a lot of tokens. Um, so my opponent, uh, I decided it's best to kill both of the Dryads this turn because I saw the Summoner's Pact. Unfortunately, my opponent had a very good hand, had the Summoner's Pact on top of their library, and I didn't have much choice. I could have killed the Titan on the attack, but they would also make the Valakut in the meantime. Um, so it wasn't great. It wasn't a great deal for me anyway. So I just move on to the next game. I had the Colgan's command from my sideboard, which is very good when I play on the place. It can be pretty slow on the draw, but in this matchup it's decent. So I again go for the Iconoclast. Turn 2, it's a very good threat you can just play on turn 2. Especially against this kind of decks, you can produce a lot of tokens early and just pressure your opponent. Go very wide with these tokens, and if just opponent doesn't get rid of it, it becomes huge, huge, just huge deal for them. So I decided to go for to just kill the Dryad. They don't have the green mana currently, so it's hard for them to produce 2 green mana same turn, so I thought I was pretty safe. I then discard the Summoner's Pact, go for the Amulet, create some more tokens, loot for the Shredder, put them to the lethal next turn, and that was game two. Okay, so match game three. In match three against the Amulet opponent, it's harder playing on the draw, but I had the Alpine Moon, which is pretty good against them. And it was even better because it turned out my opponent has two Simic Growth Chambers in the hand, and Alpine Moon seemed just brutal against the two Simic Growth Chambers. It's definitely great to slow them down. So I just decided it's best to play both Alpine Moon and Removal on Dread this turn, and it's also a bubble to scry, leave the heat on top of my library, and immediately start attacking for 3 with Channeler. I just really wanted to draw this heat. Didn't have the third land, which was problem, but I thought at the moment heat is better. So I found a third land and I was able to kill the amulet immediately. My opponent went for Toloria, but to find the Celestial Sanctuary, they needed another bounce land in this situation. So I just go to finish the Grazer and destroy the amulet. So I'm pretty sure they can't do a lot in this turn, and they just go for the Summoner's Pact on Find Kura, play it. So they just decide to make the token, but I have too many tokens plus flyers for next turn, and they're forced to pay the mana for the pact so they can do much. And I find another heat which finishes me the game. I should have played it in the upkeep, but I didn't put stop, so well, it didn't matter. I had a kill. I had all I needed, and that was it. That was match three. Uh, match four. I can't remember. Was this also Murktide, or we will see very soon, of course. Okay, so I think no, it was the Grixis. Sorry, I think the Grixis is a pretty decent matchup. Uh, uh, when I realized its creativity, I didn't want to play the Iconoclast into the brand, so I go for the Totsis first. I decided to discard the Fire Ice. It's the only card they could have played at the moment because they kept the hand with just Mountain and War on Mine. They draw into just Steam Vents. Didn't have the fourth land at the moment, but they kept top decking decent. I wanted to get rid of this Prismari, not let them draw to discard too. So they have trouble finding the fourth land. I had a lot of removals in the hand, so their creativity doesn't do much. So I'm just able to kill the token, scry two times, and these two channelers are putting great pressure. So I just played the Iconoclast here with the Drowning Lock protection, and that's it. My opponent is definitely not able to get out of this, and that was game one. Also drawing my one-off Spell Pierce, which is a good card to have in this. I decided to move first hand with one lander, but on the 5 cards I kept the one lander. It was decent hand with Shredder explosives, and you want to play Shredder explosives, sorry, on 0 anyway, so it's very good in this matchup to play it. Turn 2 with Shredder, you get the ability, and you want explosives on 0 anyway, so I decided to ditch my iteration. I think Totsis is very important in this matchup, so They go for Teferi, but Teferi is not so scary for me here. So I decide to go the Alpine Moon here. Alpine Moon on this turn means they can't go fetch into Dwarven Mine, so I'm safe. I tried to find the land to play the Consider, but didn't find it. Just played the Thoughtseize and killed the fairy, but the Thoughtseize was pierced by my opponent. So, but I'm able to go Thoughtseize again. This turn, discard the creativity from my opponent's hand, and they reveal the hand with just two Dwarven Mines and Archon. And I had a very good clock, three turn clock. And any live card I draw means I get to loot with Shredder because can replay the Ragavan each turn. And I just grow the Shredder, cycle the cards in my hand to find the thing I need the most, leave them on 4 life with Hearse on the field. They're 1 mana short of casting the Archon from their hand, but I go Totsis first, but unfortunately they have Veil of Summer, plus they find the Binding, which I can't counter now. And but I have lethal with the Hearse and the Ragavan Dash protection it heat for eventual blocker, which they of course don't have, but whatever. That was it. That was the lethal damage, and it was time for the trophy match. Trophy match, I faced Amulet Titan again. I was on the play, which is definitely where I want to be. Okay, again kept a decent hand, a Ragavan Shredder, and some interaction. Unfortunately, my opponent immediately goes Grazer. I can't get rid of it. Um, So I just go with the Shredder Bubble and then go saving Totsy's Drown for the next turn. Um, I wanted to remove this Grazer, so that's the reason why I kept the Drown and needed the third land to be able to cast both of the spells. And that's why I decided to get rid of the second Totsy's. My opponent don't go for token but plays Amulet instead, and so I'm able to first go Totsis, then kill the Grazer and attack them for 5, putting them in the toughest situation where they don't have anything in hand, and I have a very good clock. My opponent goes for the token. Go for the token in the top deck mode. I find iteration for top of my deck, remove. I play the channeler before combat to grow my shredder. I decide to attack with everything. Of course, I have the second Ragavan in hand. My opponent will need to sack them up, and the construct will die because it took 2 damage from my Ragavan. So it was a fair trade. But my opponent is able to draw into the Dryad and also had the Boyuka from the Expedition map. But I attacked with everything, of course, expecting the block and leaving heat on the top of my library to draw with double. Try to find the delirium in case they find a kill or something. Sorry, I saw the Volakut on the top, so I just had the heat to get delirium for my second channeler to be able to attack them for lethal next turn, and that was it. Yeah. Okay, that was game 1 against Amulet Titan. Game 2 on the draw, my opponent mulliganed to 5 cards, but they had, you will see, just the incredible luck with the top of their deck. They just drew into Dryad top deck, and then after Dryad top deck, they had the Primeval Titan top deck exactly on turn where it was perfect for them to draw it. Okay, so my opponent didn't have much, just chamber, a saga, just a chamber at this point. So I go for Iconoclast, having Colligans for the next turn. And as I said, my opponent finds a Dryad on the top of their deck, and then immediately next turn Primeval Titan on top of their deck again with the mulligan to 5. So I just conceded there that wasn't beatable anymore. So that was it. Game 3, much easier playing on the play. I had a very decent hand, and I decided to. I had the easy delirium and the heat in hand. That's why I decided to keep this. Also had a draw from the bubble, but unfortunately the bubble didn't find me land. I still had the channeler plus consider, so lot of looks, but even got rid of put Totsis in my graveyard just to find that land, but just haven't been able to find it. And at least my channeler was active and attacking for 3. And I decided to kill the grazer immediately and upkeep to scry before the draw, try to find another land. Uh, but at least in my Ragavan, it was important to keep damage from my Ragavan. And it's just another game where you can see just how good the Ragavan is, really. And my opponent just goes for the transmute this turn, finds the explosives, and I'm able to pierce and then surveil again, just trying to find that land, putting everything non-land into the graveyard, of course, and I finally find it. It was perfect in this turn because I was able to get my treasure token and kill their amulet, and amulet means they just can do significant stuff on their next turn. So they predictably just play the land, do nothing, and I had the iteration, but they were low on life. I just needed one more attack, and I decided it's best to pass the turn with two removals, fatal push, and terminate. And my opponent just concedes. That was it. Okay, that was the entire league. Deck feels incredible. It's just very, very strong. It's incredibly strong deck, and I'm just very happy with the way I built it with some numbers of cards I chosen to play in the main, in the side, and it feels very good, very strong. I think this is the way to play the Grixis at the moment. Iconoclast is just very good threat you can play on turn 2, and you don't have to worry about your life total, and the mana base is much smoother this way. There are a lot of blood moons around, and this mana base is slightly better against Blood Moon. It's kind of easier to have access to all the basics in the much easier fashion, and you don't have to pay that much. We can play some lands. We can play some lands that don't cost us life, and we don't have to shock aggressively, like in the Dead Shadow version. And that's it. So, as I said, uh, the only thing I would maybe consider for playing this again is playing a second spell pierce before the fourth iconoclast. But iconoclast has been very good, and we have some flusters on the sideboard, so it's not really necessary. I like it this way too. So and that's it. Hope you like the deck. You can support the channel by hitting subscribe, hitting the like button, and that's it for this time.